Per usual, everything on this channel is for educational purposes only and is not intended as financial advice. It is Wednesday. Let's take a look at the altcoin market. Things starting to wake up a little bit, but Bitcoin's still pretty much range bound. It's, near all-time highs, likely to break all-time highs. Alts need a clear direction BTC, so it's good to see BTC as bullish as it is. Obviously, we've got the election and FOMC next week. Plenty of volatility yet to come, and I'd imagine there's a lot of people just sort of waiting. The market definitely getting ahead of itself here in that it thinks it knows the outcome of the election based on this price action. We'll see if A, that is correct, and B, if it is not correct, how angry does the market get. But so far so good on the Bitcoin side of things. For dominance, for the people that follow this, I don't know why, but we're still bullish on dominance. Has been bullish for a very long time, since 2023, based on the cloud. Does not look bearish until this rolls over. This is basically telling you what you already know deep down in your heart, that portfolios denominated in Bitcoin will probably overperform portfolios denominated in not Bitcoin. Everyone likes to talk about where they think this could go, where they think they should start rotating out of BTC, but as of yet, there is no TA reason why you would jump out of BTC here. And if we look at US liquidity in the white line here, the last time we had alt season, US liquidity jumped considerably, and we haven't even seen that yet. And even with the jump in US liquidity, it took quite some time to work its way into the alt side of things. Additionally, if we add in the FTX SBF factor here, we really don't know, the A/B test, if he didn't exist and or FTX didn't exist and or that malfeasance didn't exist. We really don't know what the market would look like on the alt side. So an alt relative rally, definitely possible. It's better for alts if dominance goes higher, because then you have more potential energy basically to rotate into alts, more bang for your buck, if you will, the higher that dominance goes. And we have not seen US liquidity move in the past couple of years here. So that would be the leaves rustling. The leaves rustling would be US liquidity up, and then probably several months later, dominance rolling over, and you're probably getting some sort of technical reason for that as well. So we are so far ahead of that here still. The BTC is still certainly king. Now on the total 2 USD side of things, we're certainly looking better and better on trend metrics. We're not quite there yet. We're probably the closest and best we've looked since this time last year, right? We're not above the 200-day moving average yet in the yellow. We're not above the daily cloud yet. But within the next month, if price goes flat, sideways, we should be above both of those. We've continued to make higher lows here since the September low, and that's what you want to see. So this is certainly a picture for Total 2 to start to turn around, to start to look better in the next couple months. Total stablecoin circulating supply up top, flirting with all-time highs. We had some Tether prints. We had probably, I think, a little bit of USDC print. USDC does a lot of minting and burning, more so than Tether, at least on chain. So when you see tweets for minting and burning of USDC, it's a little less straightforward than, oh, Tether just minted 1 billion, right? And that's sort of waiting in the wings based on demand. And if we break those apart, USDT still far outpacing USDC by a pretty wide margin there. And I'd expect if the DeFi side of things starts to kick up again, we'd see USDC prints. So we don't quite see that. USDC to me is predominantly used in DeFi, whereas USDT is predominantly used as money globally outside of the US. And what you're likely to see if Total 2 starts to creep up, if Total 2 breaks out, you're probably going to see stables start to print again. You're going to see speculative activity pick up once again. Now, Total 2 BTC stripping out stables, still very bearish, has been bearish. This hasn't changed for weeks and weeks and weeks. The cloud doesn't lie to you. It is still very bearish. And at any point you can say, it's the bottom, it's oversold, there's a div, this is the one, I'm a hero, but it hasn't quite worked out yet. That's why it's easier to just wait. I'll look at the TIA chart. TIA is a great example. The chart looks like it wants to bottom, and yet it made a new lower low. Whether that's unlocks, whether that's selling, whatever it is, right? It just makes a lot less sense to guess. And to just wait until we're back above cloud, or you have some sort of chart pattern that makes sense. But here, doesn't quite make sense. We are seeing some speculative stuff on the legacy side of things pick up a little bit. ARK is a great barometer for that, ARKK. It's above the weekly cloud, starting to make higher highs here, trying to get above 50. That would be a huge sign of speculative activity. GME was up quite a bit this week. I don't have a chart for that, but that's starting to wake up. You've got Reddit up 50% in a week. So there are some signs of speculative activity picking up in the more speculative side of the market. This is UFO. The space ETF also holding its own here. You know, it doesn't jump off the page as something that looks great, but the downtrend has ended and it is reconsolidating at around 20. And on the weekly cloud, it looks the best it's looked since 2021. XBI is another one, very similar type of setup, type of fractal here. It's out of the downtrend, it's reconsolidating. This is biotech, also on the more speculative side of the market. So if you're hoping for alts to do well, these are the things you like to see. The general speculative sentiment to pick up again and return. Looking at the watch index, this is flat. Not much has changed here over the past couple of weeks, but it has stopped declining, at least in the interim. And that's a good sign, zooming way out. It's basically back to the post-pandemic low before things really took off. Before I go any further here, let me mention today's video sponsor, Kraken Pro. Kraken Pro is a complete overhaul of the Kraken trading experience with a one-stop shop for advanced and professional traders. Kraken Pro enables efficient trading execution across multiple markets with a UI that allows for unique optimization tailored to your trading style. You can check out Kraken Pro with a link in the description of this video. Non-investment advice, crypto trading involves risk of loss. Cryptocurrency services are provided to U.S. and U.S. territory customers by Payward Ventures, Inc., PVI, DBA, Kraken. Looking at alts today, pulling back a little bit on a 24-hour basis here. Bitcoin still hanging in there at 72. ETH finally picking up steam a little bit. We'll take a look at that. Volume here outpacing Sol for the first time in quite a while on Kraken. And right there is Doge, which is a likely election play as well. And you've got some other memes picking up. You've got some ETH beta waking up a little bit. So we'll take a look at all that. But on the ETH BTC chart, again, you've got people continuously trying to pick a bottom here. The risk reward ratio is greater, right? The reward is greater if you pick the bottom. That's why people are trying to do it continuously. My argument though is just there's really nothing for you to do here other than hope. We could say this is a horizontal level. That makes sense. That's true. We could say this is oversold. We could say there's a mild or weak bull div on RSI. All that's true. But I don't think you've really got great evidence for much of anything just yet. And you can see how long it took in 2019 into 2020 to get above the 50-week moving average, which is currently at 0.5. Based on this harmonic, not something I trade frequently or ever, honestly. But what this would suggest is, yes, we've met the conditions of the expected move. Pick 3 points here, and then you get your fourth. And from here, you could say my stop loss is X, right? Or this is the next level I'm going to add. I'm going to start opening a position here. I think in general, ETH-BTC is very hard to trade, but it still is certainly bearish and not bullish. Sol ETH pulling back a little bit today. Still looks fine. Still looks in the bull territory. Still looks like it wants to go to 0.1 eventually. This is also likely an election play because if Trump gets elected, there's probably a looser regulatory environment, or let's say more regulatory clarity for alts and alt products in the legacy environment. BNB USD also looks good, looks fine, flat. It's trying to break out here. One of the few that really hasn't broken out yet, but also looks stronger than pretty much everything else. Contrast that with TON, and there's really nothing to do here. What you want to see is price above cloud on the daily, and we're not there yet. And it just goes to show you that once these things take off, they really take off, and you got realistically 2 months of bullishness when everything else wasn't doing anything. And from there, it still hasn't gone anywhere. I only bring it up because I know a lot of people were trading it along with TIA, which the cloud is still telling you it's not quite time yet. It looks like it's plenty ready to go. It looks like it wants to push higher maybe into November or December, but not an encouraging sign to see this breakdown again, now this could be another shoulder, it could be another low, whatever, but I will always prefer to take the breakout trade at the neckline versus guessing and hoping. Now you can always open like a fraction of a position or whatever. Certainly not financial advice, but I like this better either above 570 in November, December, or above 6 in November, December, because the risk here is this isn't the low and this just keeps rolling over in a bearish fashion. There are actually quite a few charts that have this inverted Adam and Eve characteristic on lower time frames that some of them are trying to fight off here. This is Tau, another darling that sort of led the market, rolling over a little bit, not quite bullish again yet for me. This is the 12-hour cloud. You'd want this, again, back above the cloud, bullish to get across, same thing. Sui's another one, pulled back to the Kijun for the most part, and still ranging at the moment. I get a lot of questions about, okay, where do I measure the depth of things with wicks like this? If there's a long wick, I just cut it off. I just stick to the bodies for the most part. And you get in the ballpark, right? You get close enough. I mean, this was a 2x move, right? If you caught this. So yeah, you can always go from wick to wick, but once you measure a few hundred of these and see them play out, then you'll understand, okay, maybe it doesn't really make sense to use like the maximum wick every time. And we can just get the meat of the depth and use that for the move higher. So all in all, Sui looks fine. It's on trend, still bullish, definitely. For the rest of the alts, we'll take a look at the cloud on the daily. And some of these look better than others. I think Sol still looks fine. There was some discussion of distribution up here. I don't really think you can call anything bearish until BTC returns to the range or breaks down. Because if BTC continues to push higher, I certainly expect alts to follow. I don't expect them to outperform, but I expect them to certainly follow, even in a lagging fashion. So it's harder to be bearish. If you're bullish BTC, it's harder to be bearish anything else, just because eventually this stuff should follow through in some way. ETH has a ascending triangle, complex inverted head and shoulders. It's trying to get through the cloud. It didn't break down, so that's good, right? And now we're back into neutral territory. A lot of discussion on whether or not ETH is at maximum hate, and it's time to play ETH because everybody hates it. I just don't think we're there yet on the technicals, but it looks okay. It's stopped falling and it's ranging for a couple months here. That's what you want to see. That's when good things start to happen. For Doge, this is another one where I get questions on how and where do I measure the depth, and you got to see these play out a few hundred times again just to say, okay, I'm going to use maybe the top of the shoulder to the depth of the candle down there. I think this still has a little room to go. If I had to guess, this reconsolidates a little bit and keeps moving. This is, of course, an election play relative to Elon and Trump. So if you are bullish, Orange Man getting elected, you're probably holding, waiting for that to happen. You know, this might sell off like election day, right? It might sell off right before it's clear who wins. I don't know. But it certainly looks like that's how it's playing out, and that's why it's been overperforming. Still looks good on trend. Pepe would be ETH beta. It's starting to complete this inverted head and shoulders. You can see the inverted Adam and Eve low time frames here, this VU upside down. It's trying to negate that. So this looks okay. This looks okay. It's certainly on my watch list, and I've been watching it, because when you start to see one of the meme coins start to overperform, everyone starts looking everywhere else, right? What does Pepe look like? What does SHIB look like? What does Floki look like? What does WIF look like? So we're not quite there yet. We're not quite there yet as far as being above the cloud or above a diagonal resistance level, but there's certainly a world where, again, relative to the election, all this stuff starts to break out come next week or next Saturday. Whenever we know the election results, things start to look better for a lot of these meme coins. Popcat, I don't really have anything to say. There's really not enough trading history there. It looks like there's some sort of channel that it's in, upward channel, and so you're probably fine until that breaks down, but not really for me. Ripple hasn't done much of anything and isn't really relevant to me until it's back above 66 cents. That seems to be a pretty important level that it's been below for many, many months, if not years at this point. Rune is another one that's done really well. It's made higher highs relative to a lot of other coins which have languished and haven't done much of anything. It's above the cloud. It's above the 200. It's got a 5200 golden cross here coming up. Looks like that happened yesterday. So there's plenty of trend metrics that would agree with me that this is bullish. If you remember back in August last year, it was one of the first movers. So part of me is wondering if that's what's happening here. For whatever reason, it's starting to outperform relative to anything else similar to last year. FTM also looks okay. It's above the cloud, kind of flat, ranging, not turbo bullish, but not bearish relative to everything else. You know, if you're looking for something that looks halfway decent, this is the type of thing you look for. It's not really for me, but it looks okay. FET, this is what I'm seeing a lot of recently, just sort of drip, drip, drip below the cloud. Not quite time yet, probably, for a lot of these, just based on certainty of bullishness. You know, this can go three ways, right? Bullish, bearish, or neutral. It gets more bullish above 150 November, December. Again, post-election, no surprise, a lot of this stuff just looks like it's waiting for a catalyst to push it one way or the other. WIF, similar to FTM, looks okay. Doesn't look terrible. It's got the head and shoulders potentially thing. Not great, not terrible. Better than most of this stuff, but not really screaming at you that it's bullish. Link has had a, similar to ETH, it's basically trading like ETH. An ascending triangle, triple bottom attempt here. Looks better and ready into November, but it stopped making lows. That's the key. Stop making lower lows. It also had just head and shoulders fractal and reversal fractals, and it just didn't look like it was happy above 15. Whereas here, you can see it's trying, it's trying to bottom, trying to make higher highs. So it looks okay. Looks okay. SHIB, this to me, one of the strongest looking charts, just because it's been flat since July. It was down at 1.80% from the highs. It's above the cloud. If meme coins start to perform for whatever reason other than Doge, I would think this would be on the list of things that start to do well. Probably doesn't move until next week. LTC, I've also been looking at, because unusually, relative to everything else, right, it's above the cloud on the daily. It has that much going for it. It has held this ultra long-term support. If we zoom way out, we are in this huge box. So if you're going to take a stab, take a chance, if we know Bitcoin is leaning bullish, if we think Bitcoin is going to continue to be bullish, if we think Doge is going to continue to be bullish, I think there's some sort of narrative with all three of them there, just historically. So it looks okay. It looks okay. It's also in the time where we tend to see LTC start to pick up again. So I like a stop loss at 60. You could target like 250 probably, just based on this huge fractal that it's in, and see what happens. It looks okay. I don't think it looks as good as BTC or better, but it looks okay. Pith, anything above the cloud, anything that's held flat, this thing has just ground you out, right? For how many months? 5 months here? It looks okay, right? This is how things tend to start. Flat for months and months and months. You stop making lows, you start making higher lows, and you start making higher highs. We're above the cloud. So the cloud gives it its blessing. 5200 cross, let's take a look. Also getting ready to be bullish there, above the 200-day moving average. So there is some stuff here that looks okay. Plenty of stuff that looks okay. Some of the other layer ones, AVAX, just kind of chopping around, not really much to say. DOT, I think, also just holding at the lows there, not really much to say till it starts making higher highs. So if you're trying to judge, at least for me, if I'm trying to judge like Pith versus DOT, Pith, if that's even how you say it, PYTH, looks better to me than DOT. DOT looks worse than pretty much everything to me, as does ADA, just flat, sideways, not really doing anything. You could say, well, it's out of this falling wedge. It may start to break up. We talked about a trade on this at some point, but I just wouldn't have high conviction that this would play out in my favor relative to some of this other stuff. So I'll stop there for today. If you want to see anything else specific, you can join me tomorrow, Thursday, 2 p.m. EST, do a live stream on this very channel. That's all I have for today. Like, dislike, comment, share, subscribe, and happy trading.